Okay, Tanner, the show everyone's been waiting for. We officially have to, put a stake in the ground and say what we think will happen to this team this year. I feel like it's kind of like it's a preseason tradition, making a prediction that you got to hold yourself to, and then if you're hilariously wrong, then it's fun to revisit, and if you're right, then you get to say I told you so. So that's what we're gonna do here today. But before we get into that, I thought it would be maybe a good idea to review the last couple shows that I did with Davis and Jeff, where we laid out the absolute best case scenario for this team in the standings and the absolute worst case scenario in the standings. And after discussing it with the two of them on this very couch, I feel like the absolute worst case scenario for the Flames from a standings perspective is that they could be potentially the third worst team in the NHL. And then the absolute best case scenario for the Flames is basically what happened last year, except they actually get into the playoffs, losing round one. So if that is the realm of possibility that is possible for this team, before we get into our predictions, I wanted to address our biases out front. So in that case, if that is the realm of possibilities, what would you prefer would happen to the Flames this year in that continuum of possibilities?
I would prefer if this team was in line for a top 5 pick going into next season. I think I don't really want to. Playoffs are fun, but I'm pretty deep into I think this team needs another one or two elite pieces, probably that you can only get via draft, and that is the path I'd like them to go. Will they go that way? Probably not. 100% no, but I am team rebuild. My optimum is if you're picking in the top 5 next year.
I'm the same way, and I think I thought about this the other day. I haven't always been like this. Like the Flames put me here, but in all seriousness, if you'd asked me that question in like 2017, I would say, would you rather have a really high pick to add to this, core that they're assembling, or would you rather make the playoffs and lose in round one? At that time, I probably would say, I think, we've done assembling the core. It's time to make the playoffs and start growing a little bit. So it's not like my philosophy on team building is you always need to be, unless you're going to be one of the best teams, you need to be bad. But I just think what this organization needs can only really get from drafting high. And so that is why I would prefer that they are the third worst team in the NHL versus making the playoffs and losing in round one.
Yeah, I think 2017 at that time, that is a bit of a different team, especially different play. Yeah, you kind of have that core. Can you really say that we have a core set up with this team? No, I would argue our core is Zane and Dustin Wolf, so not great.
Not much of a core, more of a duo.
Yeah, more of a duo, and one guy has played one NHL game. So, yeah, I just think really the only way. Look at this year's draft as well. I know it's a lot of wingers, but if you can get an elite winger, the ideal would be draft an elite center, but they don't seem to really be in this class. But this class is pretty highly regarded, so I would still take an elite winger over making playoffs and losing in 6 games.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up about the depth of the draft and where the strengths may lie. We all want that number one center. It would be great if we could get that in the draft. If that player isn't available wherever the Flames are picking, I think you can make a very easy argument that a top line winger, like a player that could turn into something like Kirill Kaprizov or David Pastrnak or something, would still be incredibly valuable and something that this organization doesn't have at this moment, and therefore would be a huge value add.
I agree. Yeah, put it that way. Yeah, Kaprizov, the Pastrnak. Yeah, of course I would take that guy. So it's just hard to see the Flames. I can get into it, I guess we'll let you talk about what you want the Flames to do. But I unfortunately think we're speaking in La La Land if we're saying we're going to get a top 5 pick.
Yeah, it's long odds. I think the Dom of the Athletic had the Flames at about like 29% odds of getting a top 5 pick, which was actually a little bit higher than I had expected. But nonetheless, that's still long odds. And unfortunately, we may be stuck in that mushy middle once again. Who knows? We know we're going to get into it. So why don't we go there? So we've established the last 2 weeks we've established best case, worst case, what we want. What do you now? Putting all that aside, what do you actually think is going to happen? If you had to like write down something today, be like, Vontae Mack, no matter what. If you're writing on a piece of paper what you think this team will be, and you're opening it up in April for the best chance of that prediction being right, what do you think will happen?
I'm glad you brought up paper because I did that exact thing. I did write down exactly my thoughts on a piece of paper today, and where I think this team will be. Do you want like a 1 to 32 first of where?
Well,
I have a solid range that I think this team will be in.
Okay, yeah, maybe let's. So on the Instagram today, I kind of put up a little poll to walk us through it. So first question first: do you think this team will make the playoffs?
I do not think this team will make the playoffs.
Okay. No. Well, is there a particular reason why you think they won't make the playoffs?
So I did my full kind of looked at the whole NHL prediction, so went division by division. I just think that both Minnesota and St. Louis are two better teams. I basically got down to comparing St. Louis versus Calgary. St. Louis just, I think they have a better coach with Montgomery. They have better high-end players. I mean, you got like Kyrou, Neighbors. Shen is still pretty good. And then they have just a little bit better defense. And they also have Robert Thomas, too, on the front end. And then they got like Broberg, Falk, Parenko, and then goalies are both decent. So I think that was kind of what I got down to is kind of Calgary versus St. Louis, and I just think St. Louis is a better team. And I think the Central is a stronger division than the Pacific, so I think they'll probably get 5 teams from the Central in the playoff picture this year.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that there'll be 5 teams out of the Central this year, and so and I don't think the Flames actually, the Flames might have a better shot at third in the Pacific than a wild card spot. Yeah. I definitely don't think they can be a top 2 team in the Pacific. I think, like I said just before we started recording, that I think Edmonton and Vegas could, kind of sleepwalk through stretches of the schedule this year and still end up being the top 2 teams in the Pacific. And I think the Central is really strong. I think Utah will be better this year too.
Yeah, I think I have them finishing 6th, but I liked their team thinking about it, but looking on paper, I still think that they have still some serious holes. But yeah, I agree. I think they will be better than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I kind of like built it out. Is I just went division by division, and yeah, looking at the Pacific, this division sucks. Like it's brutal. So like I've got Vegas 1, Edmonton 2. I think those are pretty obvious. Like you said, they should be able to sleep throughout the entire regular season and just walk into the playoffs. Those 2 organizations, assuming McDavid doesn't get traded at the deadline. But
that's another show.
Yeah. And then Los Angeles is kind of a weird one where like they're still good, but the moves they made, I don't think they're as good as they were last year. I think losing Gavrikov is a big loss for that team, and replacing them with like Cody Ceci and Joel Edmondson just not going to really. I think they're going to regress a little bit. They still have some like pretty good forwards, like Byfield's come around, and like I still think they're a good enough team, and Kemper's decent enough that they'll finish 3rd. And so my big one was, and then if we go the opposite way, if we start at the bottom now, obviously San Jose, that team stinks. I think it's going to be a battle between San Jose and Chicago for worst in the NHL. San Jose at least has a couple of veteran D-men. Chicago's D, I don't know if you've looked at them. I don't know any of them. They're all atrocious. But San Jose will still be bad. And then I got kind of, in 7th I have the Canucks. I think the Canucks are going to be trash. The Canucks are kind of like an even sadder version of the Flames. They're bordering on like a Ginla level Flames where they have like Pedersen as like this sick player, and then they just have no one else around them. I mean,
I'd say Hughes is that player.
Yeah, maybe it's Hughes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think they'll be. I had tough. Yeah, I'd say Calgary, Seattle, Anaheim, Vancouver, in that like 4 to 7 in the division.
They're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, I could see either team going around. I think Anaheim's going to be better this year with Quenneville. They added Kreider. They added some more veterans. They must trust Dostal. They trade Wade Gibson. So like I feel like they have confidence in their goaltending. So yeah, I feel like the group of, and then Seattle as well, they added some guys. So I think those 4 teams, including and Calgary's in that mix, we could finish anywhere from 7th to 4th, just depending on how the season shakes out and how, I don't know, things we talked about, Jeff, like injuries, who regresses, who progresses. But I don't know. I think Seattle could actually be an okay team. Just they got some reasonable people. But Flames specific, in the Pacific Division this year, I have the Flames finishing 4th. So
Okay.
I have being Vegas 1, Edmonton 2, Los Angeles 3, Calgary 4th, Seattle 5th, Anaheim 6th, Vancouver 7th, and yeah, the biggest battle for me was flipping Seattle and Calgary, but I think Calgary still has, as the roster looks right now, I think I trust Calgary more than Seattle, unfortunately.
Trust, but like a compliment with damp praise, basically.
Yeah, like I mean, Jeff's put it best. Like, there's a lot of pros on this team. There's a lot of guys that, these guys get paid to play hockey too. They're gonna show up. They're gonna try their hardest, and like what they showed last year is, I don't know. I think Huska actually is a pretty good coach. Gets a lot out of this group, and I think players like Farabee, Frost can't be as snake bitten / as bad as they were last year. So I think they'll make up for if like Kadri or someone regresses. And then the defense is still pretty good, especially with Anderson still in the back line. Like you have Anderson and Uyghur and Ball. It's not a bad top 3. I mean, Hanley being bad, but then if you're assuming they're going to be playing Perek on the 3rd pairing, and if he is as good as we all hope he is, I think he can elevate this team. So I unfortunately do believe that the Flames, I'm pretty confident the Flames will be 4th in the Pacific Division, but it will miss the playoffs. Will not make the playoffs.
So if the Flames are missing the playoffs, but they're 4th in the Pacific Division, do you think it'll be kind of similar to last year, in which they are like, every day in March and April, it's like, oh, maybe they could make it, maybe they won't. Like they'll really be in the fight for it, and they'll just miss? Or do you think like there'll be a big kind of separation between them and maybe 9th or 8th in the West, and it won't be as close of a playoff push as it was last year?
I think there will still be a push, but yeah, I think I go towards the latter for you. I think it's going to be more of, we're kind of in like 10th, and it's going to be, we're going to be the mix with like Utah, Seattle, St. Louis, Minnesota, but I don't think we'll be at the 96 point level. I think we're going to more or less be in like I think it'll be like 85 to 90 points is what I see this team.
80. So 85 to 90. Definitely in the playoff race till late, but not maybe like the last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And then at the trade deadline, because the trade deadline's about 3/4 of the way through the year, they'll still be pretty close to a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And they won't be able to do a complete fire sale. Is what you're thinking?
I suspect. I think they'll be similar. Yeah, I bet they'll be like the 7th seed in the West at the trade deadline. So everyone will be like, oh, well, we're going to make the playoffs, and then we'll trade away Anderson. I think I agree with Dave. I think he's getting traded regardless of standing, which makes sense.
A blood oath trade.
Yeah. I doubt they'll do anything to really add people at the deadline. So, I could see them being like 7th or like 8th, and then, it's just kind of sliding back slowly as probably someone like a St. Louis or Minnesota or maybe even Utah probably makes a bigger trade, more impactful to get their team in the playoffs. Yeah, I think that's the path. I think I have overall. I think that the range that I feel confident Flames will finish between is 17th to 21st
in the overall.
In the overall,
yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I think there's a strong possibility that the Flames are we finish as like the ninth seed in the West, and like whether it's miss out by like 2 to 3 points or 5 or 6, I could see both those as a possibility.
And then like 17th to 21st overall in the league means they would be drafting somewhere between like 11 and 14-ish in the NHL draft.
Yeah, like 14. Yeah, I think 14th is like that'd be really good. Hey, like 14th is like it's
4 spots better than last year.
Exactly. So hey, we're freaking up in this world, but I think that's where they are.
That's I think when I put it on the Instagram 14, I had between 12 and 6 drafting 12 and 16 overall because I broke it up into categories of 4 draft slots, and I had between 12 and 16 as classic Flames because they've finished there so often. At the end of last year, me and my friend Noah, we recorded a show in which we reviewed every single season since the lockout in which the Flames did not make the playoffs, but then also did not draft in the top 10 of the draft. And there's like 9 of those seasons. So
it's pretty impressive. It is. We are an impressive team of just being the most mediocre franchise that no one talks about, but because I think that we're a Canadian team, smaller market in comparison to some others. But yeah, no one talks about that, but like the Flames, we're the A class of mid teams.
It's between us and Minnesota. And Minnesota's starting to leave us behind with Caprice. I'm actually pretty high in Minnesota this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can break through that mold because they're in such a strong division, but I actually do think that they're kind of starting to leave us behind a little bit, and we are taking up that mantle as king of the mid.
Oh yeah, no, I think Minnesota's gonna be pretty good this year. I think, I liked their doing my projections. I liked their team, so I think I completely agree. I think that we are the middle of the pack, the NHL, that no one's really going to talk about, except if you're in Calgary or maybe on a Wednesday morning on TSN when they have time to talk about the Flames. But we're just going to be in the middle like we always are.
And if that's the case, let me ask you this. So last year when the Flames finished in the middle again for the upkeep time, there was a lot of animosity in the fan base about, well, was this a good thing or not? Like, are the Flames making progress? Because a lot of the Flames mid teams of yesteryear that finished in that range, they're old. Often, a couple times they traded their first. It was like there was not an ounce of hope for the future, and then they finished in the middle. But this year, even though they finished in the middle again, there was at least an ounce of hope that led to this fiery debate within the fan base about whether the Flames are making progress and whether that was a good thing. My question to you is, do you think that if the Flames have that type of season again, that you could see progress with the organization occurring? And do you think that they are actually getting somewhere, or if they finish in the middle of again, are they just building a tunnel towards staying in the middle?
I think that I don't know. I think I would say they're kind of still building something. I mean, we've had last year we had 2 firsts. Next year, do we have 2 firsts again, or do we just have 1?
At the moment, I think it's just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've had. I think they're still building. Just like the draft classes have been pretty well regarded. Like from everything I've read, all the draft experts, everyone seems to like how Craig has drafted these teams, done his drafts for the past 2-ish years. So I think it's a little early to say like, oh yeah, we're stuck in the middle. But I mean, come 3 years, if none of these people like pan out, or we don't get any good players out of these drafts.
We don't get like a draft steal,
Yeah.
like a superstar that we get in like the late first,
Exactly.
or like a superstar that we get in like the second or third or something.
If Right Rishi is just an average like third line center, maybe who we thought could be a second line, and that then you look back on it and being like, yeah, we were just spinning our tires. But I think I'm still a little bit more optimistic and going to give Craig the benefit of the doubt for probably the next couple seasons. Let him have a few drafts himself, see who these guys are, and then kind of revisit that when the time comes. But yeah, I don't think it's as sad as some of those like dark age teams.
Yeah. Okay, I have on my phone some notes that I feel like kind of back up where I think this team will finish, and a lot of this hinges on how they performed last year and the fact that it is virtually the same team as last year.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what got me is just looking at the roster. This is the same team. If this team got 96 points last year, I can't see them falling off a cliff.
Yeah, I can't remember a more carbon copy of one season to the next. Really, like
they really added. They really the only change was, if you look at the starting roster versus last year, they got rid of Mantha.
And he wasn't even playing at the end of the year because of his injury.
12 games, but
and Vladar,
yeah. Other than that, it's like that's the only thing that's probably a little bit of a concern is like who is the backup going to be, and can the backup, whoever it is, be as good or as Vladar? But I mean, Cooley had a really good year, at least for the start of the year in the AHL last year. And then this Russian guy, we'll see. I don't know what he can bring, but I don't think that, and I don't know if there's a huge drop off in Dan Vladar. I like Dan Vladar, but he's still backup goalie. We gave him very much the opportunity that he could have tried to become a one here, and he never did. So I think he's just a league average backup.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the midpoint of the best and worst case scenario that we've outlined on Burning Takes with Thomas, between the Flames being about 13th overall in the league and 29th overall in the league, the exact midpoint of that is 21st overall in the league. Last year, this team's 5-on-5 expected goal percentage per money puck was 21st overall. Their expected goal percentage per money puck at all situations was 21st overall. If you don't like money puck, you think it's a flawed advanced stat tracking system, their expected goal percentage for all situations per Sport Logic was 22nd overall. And so it is not a complicated puzzle, but a bit of a puzzle. How did this functionally 21st overall team finish 16th overall? Well, it's quite simple. They had their team save percentage was tied for 9th overall in the league, and Dustin Wolf's goal saved above expected per 60 minutes among goalies that had at least 50 starts was the 13th best goalie in the league. So it's a pretty simple puzzle in that this was a 21st overall team buoyed by above average goaltending, the result being that they were 16th overall or 17th overall in the league. So functionally, if this roster is telling you that they are the 21st overall team in the league, approximately, and we kind of think that the defense and forwards would be in about that range, then for them to finish between 17th to 21st overall in the league, it would once again involve having above average goaltending, which that in itself would involve Dustin Wolf having another strong year. And like you said, probably getting league average goaltending out of your second guy. I think those are two pretty big questions. On Wolf's front, he's only played one season in the NHL. And as me and Jeff talked about, even the best goalies in the world have a lot of variance in their play year to year, unless you're one of like five guys. So I'm pretty confident in Dustin Wolf being a very good goalie in the NHL. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that he is already one of the 5 to 10 most consistently excellent goalies in the NHL year in, year out, because we've only seen him for one season. To prove that, we would need to have at least seen it for 2 seasons. So last year Wolf's season showed me what he's capable of, what his ceiling is, but we don't know what he is on a year in, year out basis. And also, I think it's a big question that if Cooley and Prostetov can give you league average backup goaltending. Prostetov was in the KHL last year. I feel like if he was a league average backup, one of 31 other NHL teams probably would have liked to have him last year. Cooley has been a career AHL goalie. He's only played 6 NHL games. Again, I think if there was an NHL team out there that thought he could be a league average backup, they probably would have made him that already. So I think that based off of what we don't know about Dustin Wolf, even though his ceiling is quite high and not at all fluky, I think this team will be about 21st overall in the league, which would have them drafting. I called it on the Instagram today, slightly out of the Flames mushy middle. So in that, so if I did 12, so in that 8 to 12 range, kind of similar to the performance that they had 2 years ago when it was also a somewhat similar roster. Of course, there's been a few more trades and stuff like that have happened since then. But they also got above average goaltending that year as well from Jacob Markstrom. That was actually a strong Jacob Markstrom year. So I think it is possible for Wolf to still be a pretty good goalie in this league this year, slightly regressed from last year, and this team functionally returns the same thing, that returns the same roster, and then they end up in that kind of 8 to 12 overall, worst in the NHL, somewhere around like 11 to 13 in the West, which is kind of where I think I've landed on where I think they will be.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I had a couple of like what ifs for when I was that I think are important to talk about. One of those was what if Dustin Wolf regresses or just has like a bit of a sophomore slump, which I mean, talk about with Jeff, but I think it's a fair consideration. I mean, this is his first year, full workload. And then, I think for the backups too, I think rosters will, when they name the roster, that'll be really telling because if I remember, I think Cooley is on he signed a 2-year deal. Last year was a 2-way. This year's a 1-way. So they have to waive him to send him down. So if they do that, then I think that tells you exactly what they think of Devin Cooley. And I feel like they could put the other guy in the A, but we'll see what happens there. And then I think to get to that other point of if we're drafting in the Dion zone, sure, I like to call it the Dion zone. That's where we drafted Dion Phaneuf.
Yeah.
And I guess Perec too.
Yeah.
Drafting 9th, we just draft defensemen there. But I think another big what if is because we know, I feel like it's just an accepted, everyone knows Anderson's going to get traded. But I think my question is more is what if Anderson is traded in November or December versus what if he's traded at the deadline? And I think that's a huge question for this team moving forward. So I think if he's traded in November, December, then I think your possibility looks even better. Then it's once you take Anderson out of this lineup, you're going to have to play Hanley, Dean, and then call up. Are you going to bring up Miramanov or Slovene or the other Slovenov? One of the Russian guys, I don't know, who are obviously not as good as Anderson. So I think that's a big question. And then my other one was if it kind of answered cool down now with Backlund resigning, but mine was what if Backlund and Kadri both agreed to wait out? Because I know everyone's talking about Kadri as a trade chip, but he has no move clause and he seems to have no interest in wanting to leave Calgary. So I don't think it's a given that he would do it unless the Flames got off an atrocious start. But still, then I'm not convinced he's not going to waive his no trade clause, even if we're bad. I feel like he might just hang around. And I mean, what season is he going to have? Hard to say. 35-year-old player, but I mean, coming off of a team leading 67 points with 30 some goals, it's pretty hard to think that he won't score at least, I don't know, 25. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. If there's some what ifs on this team that I think if they go in a certain way, the big one is when Anderson's traded, when how Wolf is playing, I could easily see this team going to moving from where to that 17 to 21 down to drafting 8 to 12, which would honestly wouldn't be terrible. I mean, in reading like the drafts and like the draft outlook I was reading was like there's some decent prospects in that range, and like I said, there's no high end center at the start, and if you're not going to get McKenna, then hey, I mean, if you're drafting 8th, but I would take it. I would honestly just take top 10, but I think the Flames will. I just have a sneaking feeling that they will outperform how everyone thinks that they're going to perform. But on the other hand, the Flames are also very, very good at doing the exact opposite of what they should do. I mean, think back to like all of those teams where you're like, oh, we'd make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, make playoffs, miss the playoffs. We're very inconsistent. So I mean, last year's a weird year because we basically would have made the playoffs in every other year except for last year. So we pretty much were a playoff team, but we didn't make the playoffs. So does that mean that we are going to regress and go back to we suck again, or do we somehow just stay where we were last year and make the playoffs? But there's some bad teams out there. Like I'm worried about. I got some notes on some other teams that make me concerned about even if I don't think the Flames could get that low. Chicago National, brutal, terrible team. National, like they all got Stamkos and Marchessault, so they got no one else.
And those guys aren't even good at it.
They're not even good. They're old.
Yeah.
And like
Yossi's hurt.
Reading through their roster, I was like, who? Half their defensemen I've never even heard of. But my real fear that would detract, especially anyone who's like full team tank, is that there are some really bad teams in the Atlantic, like so Boston, Buffalo, Detroit, and in the Metro, Philly, Pittsburgh, both. All those teams, I think you could easily argue that the Flames are better than all those teams I just listed from the other 3 divisions. So like, and once you add that up, that's 9 teams. So I mean that means the Flames, like a 10th at the worst. That's not including San Jose, Anaheim, and maybe like Vancouver or Seattle. So like I just kept pushing the Flames up and up as much as I didn't want to. I was like, there's no way this team is as bad as some of these other teams. And like I just think that some of these teams in the Atlantic are going to get absolutely throttled by like the Leafs, Lightning, Panthers, and like the Devils, Hurricanes, all those Eastern Conference teams. I think will just throttle these, like especially like a team like Pittsburgh, where they're gonna be so bad and have such poor points that they're just gonna be automatically shoot in to be in like the lottery in the top 3, which hurts us.
That's the thing. Being the worst team in the league is winning the Stanley Cup of being bad. Only one team can do it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do.
It is.
Like, it's really hard to be that bad.
And this team, and you look at the Flames roster, like there's a lot of NHL experience. And guys who've been in this league for a long time. And I just can't fathom them all either regressing or playing so poorly to a level that we would be worse than like the handful of teams I mentioned. So like I said, I want the Flames to be as bad as they can be, but when I just stacked it up, I can't in good conscience genuinely say that the Flames will be worse than.
It'd be wish casting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It would be. Yeah, just be making stuff up. Like Pittsburgh is atrocious.
Pittsburgh's bad. I think Pittsburgh and Philly are really like committed to the tank, and it's hard to be worse than teams like that are fully committed.
Yeah, and that's exactly and it's like, and I would argue, in the Metro and Atlantic are both. Metro not as much. The Metro actually, I don't think the Rangers will be as good. I think the Islanders will be like okay. I think Columbus is actually going to probably finish 4th in that division.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some decent players, but I mean, with them, with the top 3 in the Metro and the top 5 kind of in the Atlantic, I just think that those teams will just pounce on the middling say
and really send them down there.
Really send them down. So just makes it tough, even if the Flames were that bad. Like even if the Flames were like bad, but I feel like you'd still look at the Flames to like beat up on a San Jose, Chicago, Nashville, Anaheim. Even if they're playing bad, you still probably go into those games expecting to win. Whereas if you're a San Jose fan, you're probably going into every game expecting to probably lose. So I don't know. I think my broad range. So I had that shorter range of 17 to 21. Yeah, my broader range was 17 to 25. So puts you kind of where you think the Flames will end up in that 8 to 12 range. So I don't know. I think we're on the same page. It just knowing this team, they will. Because I mean, if we had a top 10 pick, that'd be great. But knowing this team, they will somehow overperform their way into getting us an even worse pick and not making playoffs.
That's the battle, right? Is it the classic Flames, good 1 year, bad 1 year? Is that going to lead to them actually being properly bad this year, or is it the stronger Flames spiritual force of we all kind of want them to be bad and they just never do what we want them to do? So what ghost is a stronger ghost, basically?
I don't know. And the other thing that I think I'm interested by with this team this year, I think this is a big year for Craig. I think that this is really the year that Craig could put his stamp on and say this team needs to get better. Because we have a hard schedule coming out of the gate, very hard schedule. So I mean, if we start super flat, I mean, you'd think he'd be stupid not to look at trading for sure Anderson, but again, uncertainty how long we want to hold him. But if the relationship has soured as much as it seems, if there's a good deal presented, I feel like the Flames will get him out of town as soon as they can. And then I think it gets more interesting past Anderson, where if Craig starts looking at players, like a Blake Coleman, like before he resigned, I thought maybe Michael Backlund, but Backlund has decided to be a lifelong Flame. That's fine. I don't think he would have fetched very much on the trade market, anyways, for the player he is today. But I still feel like a Blake Coleman, just for his experience and grittiness, kind of in a Kadri, could get some decent return. Not as much as if we had traded them 2 years ago
or this offseason.
Yeah, or this offseason. But I think that's what I'm more watching for. I think Craig really is holding it, and he can tilt which way the seems we go. But I think last year we started off so well, and once you do that, it just kind of dooms you, because then it's I can't let the locker room feel that we're not letting the season get away, or that we're giving this season away.
So you think the start is incredibly crucial to setting the direction of this season and maybe even beyond that?
I think so, for sure. You're telling me if we come out of the gate, say if we play first 10, if we start I don't know,
3-6-1?
Yeah, 3-6-1, that Craig doesn't look at this team and goes to Big Murr and says we're not going anywhere past, man. We got it. We might as well try to trade some of these guys.
Get value, get bad.
Get value, be bad this year. Be bad maybe next year. And then I'm not going to call it Scotia Place.
The fireplace.
Fireplace, yeah. Or the cauldron, kind of cauldron. Cauldron opens, then that's when the team starts to build up. Because I don't know, if we just keep going at this pace, then it starts. I think that will infuriate the fan base more. If it's 2 straight years where we're just picking 14th, and it's just especially if none of the prospects that Craig has drafted, if they don't start to play in the next couple of years, or if they start to play, if we call up guys and they start to play and we're still mid, as I said before, that's when the fan base is going to turn on Conroy. We're all going to want him out. So he could probably save himself a couple years if this team actually dipped for 2 seasons. If we took a dip for 2 seasons, I think the majority of the fan base that I see would probably be completely fine with a dip for a couple of years to go get a couple high picks and then if we got like 2 premium picks in the next 2 years, with all the drafts that Craig has, I mean, that's like 5 years. Then, in theory, you should have enough to build a pretty good team, and then you can start drafting or start trading to actually build your teams or make some signings. But it's tough to say. I don't know, but yeah, I think the start is crucial this year. I think it's bigger than people are really thinking about.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a potential trade name out there. If things go really bad, I feel like no one else has talked about this. It's a bit of a hot take, so I'm curious what you maybe. It's a burning take. If things don't go well to start the year, what about trading Morgan Frost? He's a center. Teams at the deadline are always looking for middle six center help for the playoffs. He's not super old, so the acquiring team could kind of like make the argument for themselves. Oh no, we see this guy as like a support player for our window, basically. I feel like if things haven't gone well, you could get absolute haul for Morgan Frost, especially because Farabee and Cherangovich are in the age range where they're definitely not old, but I also don't think they're young. And if things are going really poorly, and you see the Flames window as being in the future versus now, well, then Morgan Frost will probably be around like 28, 29, 30 by the time that you're ideally in your window to contend again. And by that point, he's going to be at the most expensive that he's ever been in his career because he'll be like subject to being UFA then. I think if things go really poorly, I think dangle Morgan Frost's name out there because, like I said, teams are always looking for center help. Scott Lawton fetched a first round pick last year, so that I think that's an interesting name to consider.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't hate it. I mean, like you said, yeah. I mean, if someone's going to throw you a first round, if someone's going to give you, if you get to the deadline and someone's willing to give you a first round pick and like a prospect, that's pretty good for Morgan Frost.
And you're way out of it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I'd agree. And basically, I think the Flyers, I don't know what they were doing on that trade. They feel like they just wanted to ship both those guys out of town. We basically traded Jacob Peltier for 2 guys.
They didn't even keep Peltier.
And they didn't even keep him. Yeah, exactly. We just basically inherited 2 full-time NHLers
for nothing. And a second basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's if you get turned around, yeah, honestly, and you could for sure recoup a second for Morgan Frost, probably, I think.
Alone, yeah.
So I don't hate it. And I mean, if that's what the market, shoot trade Farabee too. I don't care. If some team comes to you at the deadline and is super keen on a Farabee, Frost, screw, I don't even know, maybe being crazy, I don't know, literally, but Connor Zary, I'd throw out someone's gonna give me a really good trade and this team is gonna be that, we're gonna be that bad, and we're actually, it's actually looking like we're pretty much locked into a really good pick, I'm talking top 5, then trade people, dude. And then, acquiring a first round pick is never a bad thing, I don't think. I'd like to see, I've been curious, in this draft particularly, if the Flames possess 2 decent picks.
If Vegas, let's say Vegas kind of struggles as a wild card team.
I don't.
Or is third in the Pacific or something?
I think I don't think that bad. I think if Vegas is let's just say if we had a pick that ended up being, I don't know, late first.
You mean you got another one?
Yeah, we got we traded someone at the deadline you trade Rass to, I don't know, Dallas for their first. Dallas finishes 26th. So we have pick 26 and pick 12. If we package those, how far could we get up? I mean, I doubt anyone would ever move off of 1, but I would hope that Craig would at least inquire to see how far he could get up with those 2 package first, because that's what I don't hate is if the Flames are going to be in this mushy middle, but if they're going to Craig can acquire a first round pick with like an Anderson, and then he could move. I wouldn't be against trading up for like an A+ prospect. Like last year's draft, I don't think was worth packaging picks to go up. But I think that from what I understand, this draft is a lot stronger. That's where I'd look for them to go take 2 picks, move up into like the top 3, probably along like top 3 pick. I'd be very okay if Craig did that. I mean, and then that way at least you're giving the fan base some hope of like this team is pretty good. We just got a top 3 player by leveraging two first round picks. Then then you're starting to see a path forward. But if you just keep using your mid-round first round pick every year, that's where we start tiring. Where it's like we're just doing this year after year, finishing in the middle, drafting a guy who we think can maybe be a first line player who ends up being a second line player 5 years down the line, and it's okay. And then he gets traded to a different team, and then he becomes Sam Bennett, and he's a Conn or becomes who else the Flames have even traded, but or like going way back like Brett Hall. But yeah, like I think I wouldn't be against that, but again, that means I think Anderson gets first this year at the deadline. But yeah, if you could trade, if someone wants Frost, Farabee, Zary, I'd be open to trading those guys. I don't know if they're honestly even like I think other guys like some of the depth guys like I think Hospitals, UFA, and the I don't think you
they already re-signed him.
Did they?
Yeah.
I don't think he's very good. I don't really understand the Hospitals. Hype.
I don't see him more than a 4th liner.
No.
Yeah.
And like he's kind of a fake tough guy, and just like no one on the team really seems to like him. But yeah, he doesn't have the pest characteristics of like a Tkachuk or of like a Marchand. He's just a big guy that kind of runs around but doesn't fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have been happy if they got rid of him. But yeah, I don't know. And then just play. But I think the other way, I think the Flames could get bad is if dude just play freaking Joel Hanley and Jake Bean. Like I've been reading, I remember last year that people were just loving Joel Hanley, and I just don't see him anything above a 7th defenseman on any other team. Like if he's so good, then play him, and we'll see what happens with Joel Hanley.
That's my thing. Like with the cap space that they've had these last 2 seasons, you can't convince me that Craig is trying to be bad. He'll never come out and say it. And like, honestly, it's kind of like an unrealistic expectation of members of Team Tank to be like, why didn't they just come out and say they're tanking? Like, no organization would ever do that. But you can read between the lines and say as we can say the quiet part out loud. Like, I truly do believe this team is trying to be bad. If they weren't, they wouldn't have re-signed Joel Hanley. And they would have spent big in free agency to upgrade their left side of their defense or to add like more scoring in the forward group. Like they have so much cap space that they're just not using. And it's not a criticism. I'm really glad they haven't used that because I don't want them to make those upgrades to accomplish nothing in the playoffs anyways. But reading between the lines, I think it's very obvious that this team's trying to be bad, and they'll just never come out and say it, but that is what they're trying to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Craig, exactly what you said. I think he didn't make any changes. Like, they didn't sign. We did nothing this offseason. We have all this cap space that everyone's talking about. But, like, I don't think he's going to, ownership is never going to come out and say, oh, yeah, we're planning to be bad. Like, we're not going to write. Murray's not going to write a James Dolan letter to the fan base like he did with the Rangers. Right? We're never going to do that. But
that's the only organization I can think of that did something like that.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think I agree. I think that Craig does think that this team is bad, but he just can't say it. And that's why I think last year did kind of screw us with how good they started, because then suddenly it gives, if you would just start trading people away, then everyone's talking like, well, what the hell are we doing? We're in a playoff spot. Whereas I think if this year we start off worse or just a little slow, then Craig can validate himself and basically saying like, we're not good. We're not close to a playoff spot. We're not in the mix. So let's just like trade some people and make some moves. And I think if they just keep keeping this cap space open, then like, I don't know, if they get approved from ownership, take on a couple. It's almost like give you some bad contracts or something. I wouldn't be against doing that. I mean, I don't know if Murray Edwards is okay with that. It doesn't seem like there's an appetite to retain money in this organization, which is a little unfortunate. So that seems to be a way that you can easily acquire.
Which I don't understand. Sorry to cut you off, but for all the shit we give Murray, rightfully so, when this team was trying to be competitive, they spent to the cap. So it's like, why aren't you willing to spend to the cap now to get extra assets? Like, there was Craig Conroy is quoted as saying this, like there weren't any deals at last year's deadline to retain for the rest of that year. There were some deals to retain for the rest of that year and this year, and they didn't want to do that, which makes no sense to me because they have all this cap space. Like, they could have done that. It would, like, there's nothing preventing them from doing that. So the word you use there validates. I think a lot of Craig's biggest criticizers are worried that he's trying to appease the locker room, and he might be. But I think what probably is the bigger factor that he's trying to appease to is ownership. And because he has to sell Murray on everything, on being bad, trading certain players, retaining money, stuff like that. So as frustrating as it is sometimes, and I get frustrated because I've said it many times before, it really feels like that this organization doesn't trade players that they're going to trade anyways until the last possible moment. Like, they're never proactive on that stuff. Maybe like the reason for that is still, as it always has been, ownership.
Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of that. Things are never going to change with the Flames until Murray is out. Pretty much, you look at his track record since he's on the team. This team has been the most middling franchise in the league. We made one cup run that we should have never even sniffed. We would have gone down as the worst team ever to win a Stanley Cup if we would have won in 2004. And I mean, after that, you're just blessed that you found there that you made one good trade. There was one good trade, the Newendijk for Ginla, and that you made one good trade because Daryl Sutter was in San Jose and knew who Ethan Kristoff was. And that pretty much has saved this team from becoming the Buffalo Sabres. In the 2000s, or becoming the Buffalo Sabres of the 2000s, or the current Buffalo Sabres in the 2000s.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's it, and it just the common rhetoric has always been Murray runs the Flames like he runs his business, cheap.
Yeah.
Cut costs. You're not going to spend. And I don't know if I'd
quick
buy
dollars over long-term dollars.
I don't know if I'd buy. I feel like, is it really a lot to be like, oh wow, we're spending to the salary cap? Is it really that impressive? To just be like, oh yeah, we're spending to the cap when there's a cap in the league. I think it's more different if you're a baseball team. You're like, we're spending a lot of money on payroll, whereas I feel like if you want, you can get yourself to the cap pretty easily. So that's kind of my 2 cents on ownership. But yeah, I still am a proponent that things will probably never seriously change until there's new ownership. Who knows if we'll ever see that? But
getting back to how you said, the start is so critical because if they're bad, if they're good, it's kind of like last year. If they're bad, they can maybe offload some pieces because they can sell it to a small amount to the locker room, but largely sell that to Murray. I think, and I've said this before, but I think it's worth repeating. The real issue with what happened last year, that's not the best way to phrase this. The missed opportunity of last year is I do think Craig actually has sold Murray on a soft rebuild in that, okay, you're allowed to be bad these last few years inside the Saddle Dome. For the first time in Murray's ownership, he's actually somewhat okay with being bad for a little bit. These last couple of years in the Saddle Dome, that is a very temporary thing with Murray at the helm. Once Scotia Place is built, I think it'll be exactly like it always has been, where it's like never allowed to be bad. Like spend on unrestricted free agents to get into the playoffs, to have a chip in a chair. I think these very last few years in the Saddle Dome are precious opportunities to actually be bad, because once the Saddle Dome is gone and we're into the fireplace, then there will be no other opportunity again to be bad under Murray.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. Like I think just last year was just kind of fun. Like it was kind of fun. Oh, we might make the playoffs, but it kind of did squander a year of Craig being able to kind of strip it down a little bit and maybe. But I don't know. Like also, it's hard to say. Maybe there is no appetite for players like a Coleman. I mean, I feel like there should, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe teams are not interested in going after some of these older guys instead of just trying to develop young guys on their team. But I feel like it's a lot easier to sell to the fan base, to ownership, as if the team just has. If you look at the standings in November and you are in like 12th to 16th in the West, it's pretty easy to sell that to everyone that, we should just try and like ship anyone off that we can, all our UFAs, just try to recoup for next year. Whereas last year it was like, oh, we're in a playoff spot. We're in, I think by like in November, we were like in the top 3 in the division. So it's tough to sell to everyone involved, players, fans, and ownership, that, we should actually be like selling this or should strip this down. So, I don't know. I think that's why I think the start is actually that important this year. And on paper, it looks like it's going to be hard, but we know it's hockey. Hockey's a weird sport, especially early in the season. I mean, we smoked the Oilers last year, and then I don't know, even that Canucks game. Remember, we were down 4-1 after 2, and we came back to a win in overtime. And it's like, you think about like you just lose a couple of those games, flip the other way. You're looking at the team in a completely different scope than you are last year. So I think the start is pretty key, and I think also, there's some of those unanswered questions of like, when does Anderson get moved? Because I think once you take him out of this decor, our goals against should go up. I mean, no one we're going to replace him with unless we traded a roster player.
Unless Zane's rookie of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And if he's rookie of the year, great. That's even like they said, that's more incentive to get rid of Anderson. Because I was like, well, might as well give Zane the minutes and get a first or second for Anderson, and then we're saving all his cap. So, well, not really, I guess is a good thing. But
I think kind of returning to our predictions though, because we're pretty close on what we think will happen. Because we're saying it'd be really nice if they just like sucked to start, or if they're actually like in a playoff spot, that would also be fun too. I think it'll kind of be similar to the last 2 years in that I don't think they're going to give us a clear answer. Like I think this team will hover around 500 for a majority of the year. Like leading up to the trade deadline, like they'll be like 1 or 2 games above 500, 1 or 2 games below 500. It'll kind of just like cycle like that throughout the year, and it's never going to be really clear. It's never going to be really clear what to do, and that's where I would hope, and I'm afraid, but that's where I would hope that management would be like, you know what? We're not gonna let the players decide. We're gonna make a decision on what's best for the future of this franchise.
Yeah, that's what you hope. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think they would do that though.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're gonna be that week to week team that they're talking on the deadline. Of it, well, like they could be a seller, they could be a buyer, and then it's just there's this week we won 3, you won 3. Next week, lose 4, win 2. Like it's just that roller coaster of perpetual mediocrity. But I don't know. We'll see. I think I think we're kind of in lockstep that I feel pretty confident in my prediction, especially the 17 to 25 range. I'd bet money that the Flames will be in that range. When it's all said and done, I don't think this team is a playoff team, but with how bad the division is, maybe they would sneak in if everything goes right, kind of like Davis said. But again, how far is this team really going to go? Probably a first round wall exit, and then you're just stuck in the same spot. We're having the same conversation next year. So, yeah, unfortunately, probably going to be picking 15th. We'll get some. I don't know. We'll get some guy who plays in Clarkson University. He's 5'11" left winger, and then everyone's like, well, he could be a second line. He could be good. He could maybe. They're thinking that he could maybe play center, but he could probably be more of a winger. And then everyone's like, okay, so second line center winger, and then it's like, no, he'll probably. And then he pans out. It's third line. I don't know.
Yeah, I can think of a lot of Flames players that have been drafted, Flames prospects that had that profile.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, that's one encouraging. I do like. Yeah, I want to see how Craig's draft classes kind of develop, and if any of those guys, for all the reports and things I see, scrolling through Twitter or whatever, everyone's in love with all these Flames draft classes, and how high we got these prospects. So I want to see if they can actually develop into something, but that takes time. That still probably takes, I'd say, 2 to 3 years, and in that time, I mean, that's what you said. Is we've got bad right now. We could get a couple good players, and then you can supplement these guys who've just been drafted the past 3 years, kind of in the middle of the first, mid seconds, with guys that are being drafted in the top 10. If we had 2 or 3 top 10 picks, then you're cooking with gas. Now I can see a team coming together that actually has talent, and if Wolf is as good as everyone thinks he's going to be, and if Zane's is good, then you're just sort of adding pieces into that. Then the Flames have a vision, and going into the culture, and we could actually make some noise.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not who the Flames have been. The Flames have been what we've described: mediocre, middle of the pack. We draft in the middle.
And there's not a lot to suggest that it's going to change from that.
Exactly. So 17 to 25, I think, is my official selection. Pick where the Flames will go. Not a playoff team. Unfortunately, for some people in the fan base, that's a big deal. And for others who want us to be bad, I'm sad to say I would not bank on this team getting anything better than, I don't know, the 7th overall pick. I think absolute worst. This team's not bad enough to get a top 5 pick.
Not bad enough to get top 5 odds.
Top 5 odds, yes. Yes, we could get top 5 pick, but yeah.
Via win,
yes.
A draft win.
Yes, but yeah. Odds-wise, yes. No, we will not be getting in top 5 odds.
And that would change everything, but I think if we start talking about the odds of winning, we would be here all night. Yeah. So I think that's going to wrap it up for our prediction show, or our season prediction show. Thank you for putting in all of this hard work, Tanner. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming over to talk through this with me.
Yeah, I don't know. We should get might have to get a panel going of you, me, Davis, Jeff. We can do it. We can do a Flames panel to revisit this maybe in the middle of the season.
Maybe at the Olympic break.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. I think that'd be a great idea. I look forward to that.